Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kindred Skols. I'm Matt Freese, and I have an episode for you today, which is kind of crazy because I haven't put out an episode in since probably before the Vikings season began. Um, as a quick update, and to get it in the beginning of this, I'm not necessarily planning to podcast consistently moving forward. This was just kind of one where I had a lot of thoughts and I had some time. And I brought Luke Braun on in this episode to kind of preview the draft and talk about some other Vikings things, obviously the going ons with the offseason and stuff like that, just kind of get information off my chest. But just with my life going on, I don't really have the ability to podcast consistently at this point, I would say. So I'm going to keep this feed, up to listen to previous episodes or whatever. I might post very, very occasionally, but it's not going to be something that's on a consistent basis. If you want to check out my work, I am writing for a Reef over at Wide Left, wideleft.football. I would highly encourage you check out that stuff. That's where I'm going to be putting out most of my football content. So until that changes, I don't really see doing a lot of podcast stuff just because switching from writing its own coverage, which had a little bit shorter articles, to a Reef kind of lets me do whatever I want. At Wide Left, I just kind of take up all my time to make football content in writing those articles. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, follow me on Blue Sky at friesfootball.bsky.social. I still post, when I write articles and stuff, I still link it on Twitter, even though you probably get no engagement from that sort of thing. So just wanted to intro with that sort of stuff. Won't be posting these sort of things consistently, but maybe every once in a while, if you keep it in your podcast feed, you will get a rare kind of a rare Kindred Skols episode. So watch out for that, and definitely keep reading my stuff at Wide Left, and we'll kick it over to my conversation that I had with Luke. It's about an hour and a half long, so it should be a really good one. All right, everybody, let's welcome on Luke Braun. Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, patreon.com/Luke Braun NFL, at Luke Braun. Is it still Luke Braun NFL on Blue Sky is pretty much where people can find you?
Yeah.
If Blue Sky works these days.
Look, if people want to contact me, lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com, just send an email.
There we go.
Social media, less and less a part of my life each passing day. And that's a good thing.
It really, really is a good thing. Just a philosophical question for you, Luke. How do you feel about hosting a show that's called After Dark at 8 p.m. Central Time, or 8 p.m. local time during the summer?
I have thought about this. Thankfully, I have blinds that will block out the windows. We're going to be just fine. And I know that the vast majority of my audience will actually be in the dark.
Fair.
Any later, and it would be strange to ask people to be live in that show.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't be weird for a Reef, though. I know a Reef frequently is up to 4 a.m. This is like lunchtime to him, so that'll be fine. And to me, I'm a complete goblin too.
Yeah, look, man, now that I've been writing for Reef, which is half the reason I haven't done this podcast, just because when I was writing for Zone Coverage,
your writing is phenomenal, by the way. I cite it all the time on Locked On Vikings.
Excellent. When I was writing for Zone Coverage, it was okay, I need to keep this relatively concise and within a couple thousand words or whatever, because that's what people like to read for articles. And then with the Reef, it's just all right, I'll rip off 5,000 words a week or something like that.
Like an 8,000 word free agency recap with everything. Yeah.
The Kyler Murray ones, I've been so crazy busy, I didn't get a chance to write it, but I did write the Kyler Murray thing, which is probably going to come out next month, and it's 9,000 words or something ridiculous. So it's gonna be a phenomenal time.
9,000 words on a signing that happened 2 months ago. That is beautiful.
Just
and that's what people should flock to.
Just absolute
because the
real
stuff you got
sick stuff
was stub article nonsense from Roto World. That's going to be the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just watching quarterbacks, it takes time, really, to understand what's going on, because it's such a consistent position. But what I wanted to talk about with you is just the general state of the Vikings, because this offseason has just been silly to me from a lot of ways. And it's I don't necessarily disagree with the moves they're making, but I think if you look at like the messaging the organization has given out, like it just kind of feels nonsensical to me, right? Because obviously they fire Kwesi. I think it's very justifiable to have fired Kwesi. Like we don't need to totally relitigate that, but the drafting was just so bad that it is justifiable, right? Like you can't fail consistently, not get barely any young talent out of like 4 consecutive drafts, right? And not be at least on the hot seat. I think it's a little bit like, 2025 didn't go where we expected, so now we're panicking and we have to rearrange everything, and like anything we had
That's the
as a
vibe I
plan
get.
before that, like now we're getting rid of, which is what really frustrates me because it's like, okay, we were so consistent for like 4 years, right? We get on, they don't extend Kirk because they want to actually see what they have in the building, make a quarterback decision. They make the quarterback decision, move on from Kirk. We want to go with a young rookie contract. They go with the Sam Darnold thing. That goes great, but they keep it steady because it kind of falls apart at the end, right? And it's like, okay, we have this young player on our young contract. And now all of a sudden we're snap changing because, I mean, it was bad last year. Like, don't get me wrong. JJ McCarthy did not play good football last year, but now we have to snap and totally change everything because it didn't work out perfectly the way we planned, right? And we were eliminated with 5 weeks left in the season, and that's unacceptable. And now that guy has to be completely out the window. We're done with developing him because that's just simply what it is when you bring in a player Kyler Murray's caliber. Like JJ McCarthy is not going to start unless Kyler Murray gets injured or he's so bad that you have to go back to JJ McCarthy, right? That's just like what's going to happen.
Yeah, which I don't think you get 17 out of Kyler Murray kind of at all. That doesn't seem like
that's totally fair.
Like that's just been too much of a trend over the last few years. So it could be. I think this has been the Kevin O'Connell / Kwesi regime. Tell me if I'm overstepping here. Has been defined by overreacting to whatever hurt the most recently.
And like, I got to be honest, like, I know you've been beating this drum for like quite a while, and I think you were ahead of it, and you were ahead of it compared to where I was, because I was pretty much disagreeing when I was hearing you say that sort of stuff over the course of the season. But yeah, I think that's what it is. And I don't know if that's an ownership driven thing, right? Where it's like the Wilfs are like, we see this problem and they're going to bring it up when they meet with you, right?
Yeah.
And now you have to fix it. Or it was just a Kevin O'Connell thing and Kwesi was a little bit more like, and I don't want to be like Kwesi was good, right? Because I think, the general reporting was really confusing to me. And then Arif's reporting kind of tied a little bit of it together where it sounded like, because everything Kwesi was saying from the outside sounded like collaborative, like we're going to be good and we're going to collaborate and that sort of stuff.
But
and
it was like so much that people like didn't respect.
Yeah. And Arif had,
if people don't respect the GM, it kind of doesn't even matter how good the drafting was or not anymore.
Exactly.
Like, at that point, you're not leading the team. You got to go. Yeah.
So it's like, it's a really hard line to walk there because you don't know the internal dynamics of the building. But like, yeah. But the Kevin O'Connell thing, it just feels way more reactive than I ever thought he was going to be with kind of how he's positioned himself, right? Which is pretty frustrating.
Yeah. And how they position themselves as a process over results team by getting Kwesi as like he's supposed to be the analytics guy and all that stuff, and it just hasn't worked out that way. But yeah, I was beating that drum hard last year. We were lucky enough we got to do the Ireland and England trip to go to those 2 games, and so I was sitting there in Tottenham with my dad, and we were like specifically complaining about what had happened in the Steelers game and how they had reacted to it with the offensive line and stuff, and how they had reacted to it for the Browns game, and now they're getting run on like crazy, and when it was like feeling like they were about to lose that game, and Quinshon Judkins was going crazy on them, and that was like when that thought first popped into my head. And then it like kind of kept popping into my head when they had, I forget what game happened, or I think it was the Eagles game right after that. And then they were like, we will not be run on by Saquon Barkley. And then Jalen Hurts drops a 158.3 on you. And then they're like, okay, we have to, back off a little bit more. We're going to go too high shell all day long. And then for the Thursday night game, and then the Chargers do what they did. And it's like, okay, can you stop just like looking at last week and being like never again? Like you look like the most wounded, hurt team. Like your feelings are hurt every single time. And I do think they're acting like a team whose feelings is hurt. Like
Yeah.
they watch Sam Darnold go win the Super Bowl, right? And then their guy sucks, and then and they don't want to. The Vikings were laughed at. They're a joke. Literally, the most popular joke format in sports is a picture of JJ McCarthy.
It's
Uh,
crazy.
they don't want that anymore. And for the Wilfs, who have always, like, if you think about the history of the Wilfs with the Vikings, right? What happened the first time they, like, right away when they bought the team? Ticket scalping, Whiznator, Love Boat, right off the bat. That was what happened when the Wilfs
Bring
first
in
bought the
Brad
team in
Childress.
2005.
Let's get serious.
Bring in Brad Childress, never again. They are so, it is so important to them that the Vikings have dignity and respect throughout the league. They do not ever, like, that's why they are so averse to the idea of being the 3-win team, because they don't want to get clowned on. They care about the perception of the Vikings. And that doesn't mean that they, like, don't want to win, or that their standards are lower than the Super Bowl or anything like that. It's just that they care about the dignity with which this stuff happens. They don't want to go through the cycle of the Miami Dolphins, where they're going to go through another one right now, where nobody expects anything from them and everybody's going to make fun of the Dolphins.
And they don't want you to be able to say same old Vikings, right? They want to change what they're doing from a perspective enough where it does end up same old Vikings, right? Or whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
but, like,
right. You're never going to stop people, but I guess, sure.
Like, we didn't try it the same way. They
don't want to be the laughing stock.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the one team in the league that everybody's laughing at all the time. That is that. And I think that trickles into everybody. I have my critiques of Kevin O'Connell. I probably go harder on him than, like, what represents my actual take. But I think that people, especially nationally, have just not changed their opinion at all about how he can work with quarterbacks, despite what happened last year. And if you watch last year, even outside of McCarthy, even if you look at McCarthy and say, well, okay, every ounce of that was his fault, which I think is a naive take, and he's 22 years old. But even if you say that, nobody's like, you got an undrafted rookie on the field. Max Brosmer was the worst of that situation. Nobody was worse than that.
Yeah.
You have a backup on the field like Wentz. Other teams did way better than what the Vikings could pull together with a backup in that situation. And O'Connell has done better with backups in the past. So I think he lost the plot a little bit trying to recreate the magic of Sam Darnold. I think the fact that he said no to their deal, they did have an offer. I must mention that they didn't kick him out the door and slam it behind them. They had a similar offer to Seattle, but he didn't want to compete.
And Daniel Jones was the same thing, I think, for Indy.
When Daniel Jones was, and Daniel Jones had no choice but to compete, but he just liked his odds against Anthony Richardson better.
He was right, but yeah.
Yeah. And, now Kyler's in the same situation, but all in all, the way that they have behaved feels like a team that doesn't want to do anything that could possibly go wrong, which means in the NFL, you do nothing, because everything in the NFL could go wrong. So they haven't signed anybody. They don't want to make any cap commitments. They don't want to do anything right now without a GM in the chair that could screw that GM in the future. They don't want that GM to inherit, which is, I think, part of what doomed Kwesi from the outset, was that he inherited $45 million fully guaranteed Kirk Cousins contract at a time when that was not viable.
Yeah.
And so immediately he showed up and had to solve a problem. I think they're trying to avoid that with the new GM. We don't want you to show up with a contract issue that you have to work your way out of, or some kind of trade nonsense that you have to work your way out of. And this Grenard thing is kind of exactly that. And I think they were really hoping that wouldn't happen. So that's where I think that they're. I think they're just trying to be in the most, like, quote unquote flexible spot. And what it's going to be is the GM inherits a roster that's total dookie, and then a bunch of assets, and say, okay, go. And they're going to do the punt on a year and rebuild thing that they've been avoiding for 2 decades.
Yeah, and that's my overall frustration with it, right? Because I think if you look at the messaging coming out of the team, it really came from 2 directions, right? One's from the quarterback side of thing, and the other one is from the rest of the roster, how much we're spending side of thing, right? And you get reporting, like, I mean, and these guys are certainly plugged in, like, they know what the people in the building are thinking. Like, I I very much respect what Alec Lewis does, right? And I think Kevin Seifert knows what's going on, even if he's not like. I think Alec actually has learned a lot of like football stuff, right? I don't know if Kevin's there in terms of like the football stuff side of things, but like
That's not what,
and that's not his job.
Yeah, Alec wants to learn,
and like. But like you have Alec Lewis reporting around the quarterback situation being like, okay, the Vikings know that they need to do better than JJ McCarthy because they haven't won a playoff game in the Kevin O'Connell era and they need a consistent level of quarterback play. And then Seifert keeps hammering on, and I'm sure this is coming from the building, right, that they're being fiscally responsible this offseason, right, where they're not overextending themselves in contract. So it's like, okay, do you want to be...
That's the reporting that makes me raise an eyebrow.
Do you want to be...
says fiscally responsible, I go, who's saying that?
Yeah,
who wants
exactly.
that?
Do you want to be competitive and win a playoff game, and that's why you're moving off of JJ McCarthy without giving him any sort of opportunity to develop, right? Or do you want to actually just be fiscally responsible and be okay and now have this quarterback showing where, okay, now that we have Kyler Murray, we won't be such a complete disaster on offense that like we won't get memed, right? Even though Kyler Murray is like was the most memeable quarterback just because of his height, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, that was the other, not putting O'Connell in front of the media at the combine like 2 weeks after the Super Bowl was the cowardice. That was the one that cemented it for me. That's like, oh, they're embarrassed. This is the Vikings have pee on their pants right now, and they're just trying to not to go back into the dance floor. Like,
so it's like it's just ridiculous to me how you can speak out of both sides of your mouth that way, and it's just because you don't want to make any commitments, like you said, because you don't actually have a GM. As much as Rob Brzezinski probably wants the job, it appears. Especially with how much reporting there is that he is like not sure he wants the job. Like, come on, guy.
Yeah, he's like, you can kind of, well, I don't want to be a body language analyst, but the actions of the Vikings are not becoming of a man who thinks he's going to have this job in a year.
That's true.
This is not a guy that like thinks he's, setting up his regime or anything. This is a guy that's deferring. But like with quarterback, I really do think, I think they're delusional for it, but I think like in Kevin O'Connell's heart of hearts, he does believe that there's every chance that JJ McCarthy has a puncher's chance here, that he could go to the offseason, develop, take a step forward. Look at what Drake May did. Look at what Caleb Williams did. They got so much better in their second year starting and can show up to camp as a completely different remade man and then beat out Kyler Murray, who I know that you're more inundated in this than I am. I finished my work on him closer to March, but from what I remember watching this and thinking like, these are not good mechanics.
Did you watch? So what Kyler did you watch? Did you watch his 2020 because I watched all of his 2025 stuff, but I went back and watched some 24 stuff.
So I did one game of 24 and then I did like how it ended in 25. So I did that like, the Thursday night Seattle game and then the last one against the Titans. And I saw a lot of the same stuff. And then I went back and watched his game against Minnesota in 21 to see the difference. And the mechanics were he was stepping into throws so much more confidently in 21. In 24 and 25, he's falling away from them. And, 100%. And that to me is like, I've been hurt a lot and I got to protect myself. He's probably been told a lot. He's got to protect himself. So he's like falling away. Everything's a fadeaway jumper. And I think that causes a bunch of them to sail a little bit less comfortable in the pocket, that kind of stuff. And so I totally see a world where you get one of those slow-mo videos of McCarthy and Murray and Wentz and Brosmer and they're all throwing together. And that McCarthy's throwing motion is the best one out of the three. Out of the four of them. I totally see that world. And then everyone's like, whoa, what happened? What is this? And I while I think as it is right now, I don't see any reason to like pick JJ McCarthy to be the starter to win a competition. I do think that the Vikings are open-minded about one. As delusional as you think that is, like they're going to let that be an option. They're going to leave themselves open to the idea that this guy reinvents himself.
I don't think it's literally
2 days into camp, they go, he's still that guy, whatever, in the slow cooker, Kyler, you're the guy. And then they do it. But I think Kevin O'Connell is leaving that open because he still loves this kid.
Yeah, I don't think it's literally impossible, but like just, based off of history, how many times does a player in McCarthy's position actually get a legitimate chance? I think it's really low, right? And,
Right. Well, if
obviously
you
they
get
feel the
benched for a year,
pressure.
it's over.
Yeah.
Like, I think they believe like, oh, Kyler's going to be fine for a year and then he's going to go to free agency. And then JJ McCarthy, 2027. It's like, look in the mirror, Kevin. Look in the mirror and ask yourself if you're really going to do that. After
Again.
you let Sam Darnold walk and you won the Super Bowl, if Kyler Murray wins like 7 games and is like quarterback number 18, you're extending him. You guys are so wounded by this. You are absolutely just going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
All this regime has been letting the mistakes of the past influence the decisions of the future. Kyler Murray has to be a C- and he gets the extension.
Yeah.
But
No.
I don't think they believe that right now. I think if you ask them right now, hand to God, they would deny that. I just think that that's where their mind's going to go when all is said and done.
I think with Kyler, it's a really it will be a really interesting test of the Vikings, of Kevin O'Connell's ability to work with quarterbacks or whatever you call it, right? Because I think Kyler is a really like naturally accurate player. Like even if his mechanics kind of broke down in the pocket and like dealing with pressure and that sort of stuff, like I just charted overall what I thought his accuracy was for last year, and it was great. Now,
Wow.
my comparison is Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy, who are bad at being accurate, right? Like Carson Wentz was not good last year. I don't care what anybody says. Like I don't think Carson Wentz was even better than JJ McCarthy, even if the EPA numbers say he was better than JJ McCarthy. Like he was bad during that course of time.
All he did was dump stuff off to the flat, and then Jordan Addison gave him EPA numbers. Yeah, it's wild to me that people can't identify that.
So Kyler is dumping stuff off to the flat all the time in 2025 because that's literally the offensive design. Like I was charting, where they were dropping back from under center, what they were doing. They ran play action from under center 3 times in the first 5 dropbacks of Kyler's season. They ran it like 12 times the whole rest of the year, the whole rest of the 5 games. It was like they had a plan. They wanted to be an under center play action drop back team, and they scrapped it almost immediately. He took 2 sacks in the first 5. Like he was completely uncomfortable being under center, which I thought was really weird because he did a ton of under center stuff in 2024 with the same staff. It was like, so that's the main question to me, because in 2024, you actually see Kyler do a lot of the stuff I think works in the Vikings offense. I just like sorted by under center dropbacks that he targeted intermediate and deep range, right? Just to see like what was there, because he literally had 4 attempts in that range in 2025, right? There was nothing on tape where he's throwing. He has this major turn down to Marvin Harrison Jr. where he's wide open on a dig against the Saints. It's like one of the first drives of the season and it's wide open. He scrambles out of it and gets like 15 yards, right? But like, so it turned into a positive play, but like literally he was staring at this dig and not throwing it. I'm like, what is going on here? And 2024, he's ripping those throws with confidence. So I have no idea what happened in that interim. And I think that's really what's key for the Vikings to figure out, if they can bring back what that 2024 version is. But I think like he throws a beautiful deep ball. I don't know if you've seen some of the deep throw. Like he's an incredible deep ball thrower. I think he doesn't have like, it's weird because I don't think he's actually all that good of a thrower on the move. Like I don't think he just generates the amount of torque he needs to be able to get those throws off, which he can do like on platform, but everything he throws on the move is like a high trajectory arcing throw, which can work, but like he just can't drive it in the same way that JJ McCarthy, like the touchdown to Naylor in the Cowboys game,
do the Mahomes stuff.
Yeah. The touchdown to Naylor in the Cowboys game for McCarthy is like Kyler can't actually access that throw from what I saw on tape. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, every time he escapes the pocket, I just want him to run. That's going to be where,
and he's
just use your legs.
He was super jittery in the pocket. Like that whole area needs to be fixed. I thought his footwork was a mess in terms of like, it doesn't seem to be timed up to the routes all the time, which is concerning to me and super important in the Kevin O'Connell offense. But like also there were times where I thought they were just reading shallow to deep in that offense, where it's like the downfield routes haven't even broken yet and Kyler's dumping the ball off, right? And it's a clean pocket. There's nothing going on there. So it's like, what is going on with this team? And of course everybody gets fired. So it's like, It could just be they're bad.
Yeah, right.
And he's not on the same page with
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. ever, but he's always on the same page with Trey McBride and seems to be on the same page with the other receivers. So I'm willing to chalk that up to a Marvin Harrison Jr. problem. It's just like there's a lot of stuff with Kyler.
Yeah. Right. It's like Geno Smith on the Raiders, where it's like, you
Yeah.
know what? Some of this, all of this can't be your fault. Like some of this is just the Raiders, and some of it's just the Cardinals being the Cardinals. But that's why I wanted to go back to 2021 and like I wanted to see how Cliff would use him versus how Drew Petzing used him, and it is different. And
Yep.
Drew Petzing, I don't think ever really liked having him as a quarterback. I think he took that job because it's an OC job and you're Drew Petzing. But I think he never really wanted to run the kind of because that kind of like Cliff Kingsbury is the best match for Kyler Murray. And when he got fired in Arizona for reasons that he got fired, you're not going to get a better fit like ever.
That's why I want to sit Kevin O'Connell down and be like, Kevin, do you want to run that kind of offense?
That's what I'm wondering. Like, so here's an idea that I think is interesting is take all of your rollout stuff and just pistol.
Yeah.
That was an idea Jordan Rodriguez had, is just make this a pistol offense then. And it'll look a little funky and it'll look a little college, like whatever, but that's but like outside of the aesthetic, you still get the idea of being able to get that running start, that downhill play pass motion that like Kevin O'Connell really wants, that attacks the A gaps and tries to funnel the linebackers inside. You can run rollouts out of pistol. You can run duo out of pistol. You can run inside zone out of pistol, but you still give Kyler Murray that shotgun vantage point that he needs so much. It feels like a marriage of things, but I feel like super pistol heavy offenses don't always like there's a reason that it's an uncommon thing in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean,
but I guess it's the merger of, one wants to run under center, it's when you're at the impasse of under center and shotgun and you can't reconcile those two things. Pistol is the middle point.
I was going to say, I feel like the guys who have had success in pistol are like the ancient, 2014 Peyton Manning or whatever, right? Where he just can't move anymore, which is why it's an interesting,
yeah, right.
Or like Kirk Cousins in Atlanta year one, right? They ran a ton of pistol because Kirk couldn't actually, because of the Achilles, actually execute the play action fakes.
Couldn't actually drop back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it is kind of weird though that the NFL, like, because there is the marriage. I wonder if it's like the footwork timing and that sort of thing, right? Where, okay, I'm still trying to execute, play action drop back footwork out of pistol, but now I'm getting way too much depth because I'm starting back further, or it's just hard to time up with like the ride motion, right? In terms of the handoff. Like I kind of wonder why philosophically, because it should be a good marriage between the two, but nobody uses it in the NFL on a regular basis, basically.
Yeah. I think they could run under center if they really wanted to. I think they could make Kyler do it. I think it would be fine. It's just, not what he has done in the past, but I do think that's one that I think O'Connell could push.
Yeah. I thought he was very capable at it in 2024. At least, I definitely filtered it down to where I was watching the good plays out of it, right? But like they ran it over 100 times, like under center play action stuff in that season. Just I was using the NFL Pro filters, just any sort of passing attempts. So like he was doing it a lot. And I thought, on the plays he was targeting deep, he was pretty proficient at it. And then it just completely disappeared in 2025. And that's the operative question to me. So,
yeah. And well, the people who made those decisions didn't keep their jobs. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. It's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm pretty down for the Kyler Murray experience. I as much as I have worries about like this guy not be like, he is living off of the reputation of things that happened 4 years ago. He's been to the playoffs once in his whole career. How much like it can't all be just Arizona. And he has had years where he's, the 19th best quarterback and all that. And I think there's a worry about that. But most of the discussion is like, well, that was better than what they were last year. Well, yeah, McCarthy might be too, but also that's still not good enough. Yeah. What is the expectation here? What is the sell of this year's Vikings? And it feels like we're just going through a 1993 Jim McMahon season and going, well, that'll work out. I guess they made the playoffs that year, but They didn't like that. That wasn't a version of the Vikings that ended up really contributing anything to their immediate future.
Yeah, and that's the concern I have is, okay, we get Kyler, we get some better competent quarterback play. And certainly what Kyler was doing last year was way better than what JJ McCarthy was doing last year, right? So I'm not trying to say it'll be as bad. But now we've, taken a big step back other places on the roster and basically done nothing to supplement it, right? So it's like, okay, we were 9-8, just barely one game out of the playoffs, even if that's kind of not the reality, right? Because the Packers didn't care the last week of the season. The Bears kind of didn't need to win, right? All that sort of stuff. So like they weren't necessarily trying as hard as they might have been. Helps the Vikings out a little bit in the record wise. Now we've had a worse defense. So you can say, national media can say from the outside, like, oh, the Vikings were 9-8 last year. They had the worst quarterback play in the league, basically.
Upgraded at quarterback,
yeah. And they're a confident playoff team, but they've deteriorated elsewhere on the roster. It's like, so,
and refused to address those issues. I mean, we've got right now, if they had to start a game tomorrow, which is a bad faith thing to say in February, but not in April, not when the draft is coming, and that's kind of your last chance to really add real talent. You have starters Jay Ward, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Blake Brandel, and
Ty Felton.
and I guess Ty Felton. Yeah. And Ty Felton, if you count wide receiver 3 as a starter, which I think you should.
Absolutely.
That is highly concerning. You can't address all of those in the draft. So you either have to find, June signing Stephon Gilmore Band-Aids for all of that stuff, which again is not contributing to the future. Or you're just going to have some bad players. It does feel like the Vikings are punting on 2026. I think if you're one of those fans that will lose your mind if the Vikings are bad, you may need to sit one out. We might need to see you next April.
Yeah. So I do want to move on a little bit here. We'll talk about needs in a second. I'll just go quick because I know you haven't watched these guys. I was able to watch James Pierre and Ryan Vandermark. James Pierre, I like as
tell me the deal.
As a startable outside corner. He's a little bit skinny for his size, so he can get out physicaled off of routes, but I think he's a really smart player who communicates pretty well. I think he can start. And he's really aggressive in run defense and coming up and tackling. I just love his demeanor. His play demeanor is awesome. So I think he's a starting caliber player. I think the Vikings, if they wanted to roll into the season with Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, and James Pierre, they could get away with it. They've certainly got away with worse at corner under Brian Flores. But he's not the type of guy, and he's not being paid like the type of guy, and neither is Isaiah Rodgers, that prevents you from wanting to upgrade and swing big in the draft, to me, right? So it's I could certainly see them take that in the first round. Vandermark, I'm a little he's a much better run blocker than he is a pass protector, in my opinion. He's a good run blocker. I think he can start as a run blocker in the NFL. He was way too up and down in pass protection. He's just not consistent in his sets or with his hands. He's a hugger. Right. He's got high hands, which is good, but super wide hands when he's coming in and, the hug technique basically. And it seems to be kind of what the Bills are teaching, right? Because they're left tackle, not Deion Dawkins, but the backup left tackle when he came in the game. I wasn't really paying attention to Dawkins, I'm sure, but he's one of the best tackles in the league, right? So it's whatever he's doing is fine over there. I'm not worried about that. But he just wasn't. He had some really nice reps, but he wasn't consistent in terms of when he was making contact with people. He was kind of late with his hands, right? A lot of times, and not winning that first contact, and he could get beat in those ways. And he plays high too, because he's a tall guy with long arms, right? So it's just sometimes an issue for him. I don't think he's Justin School, right? Justin School was pretty unplayable at tackle. I think he can get by, but we're going to be frustrated with some losses in pass protection and some sacks he lets up if he has to play.
Yeah. And ideally he plays not near, because Justin School played 600 snaps.
Right. Ideally he doesn't play at all. But we'll see how that goes.
People complain to me a lot in YouTube comments and stuff about you got to fix the O-line. It was the O-line. And it's do you know who's playing?
Yeah.
On that unit at a given time? We had Joe Huber out there at times.
To be fair, you do have to fix center, but I digress.
I mean, so there's 1 out of 5 positions, and that's the thing. But they're not. I would kind of get if people were we got to get rid of Will Fries because you're mad about the contract. But I thought he was fine. Just didn't live up to the price tag. but fine generally, like just a below average guard, and you need a center. And it's like, man, that's not the worst O-line spot in the league. The worst O-line spot in the league is, oh God, Justin School has to play a lot.
Yep.
That was the worst that could happen. And it's like, okay, he's on the Bucks. The bad man can't hurt you anymore.
Yeah. So just overall team needs, I mean, I think it's pretty much everything, right? We don't need wide receiver 1 or 2, maybe with wide receiver 2 and Jordan Addison. But like for right now, and I like Jordan Addison. I think the team should extend him. That's fine. Like his off the field stuff. Well, I don't know.
I think they're going to.
I would maybe wait until next offseason, but I'd be certainly willing to do it.
Yeah.
Without like further issues.
They will probably do so next. Yeah. I don't think that's a this year conversation unless you're, Darisaw or Jefferson or whatever. But even Jefferson didn't get it on his going into his fourth season. He went going into his 5th year season.
But you still need wide receiver 3. And honestly, like, okay, I'm not saying we should prioritize a wide receiver in the first round, right? But like, if something ridiculous happens on draft day and one of the best guys in the draft at wide receiver is there, like, I wouldn't hate drafting one just because it gives you more flexibility with Addison too, right? In case you really are concerned with his off the field stuff. Interior offensive line is definitely a need, like, but we can't do anything about Will Fries until next year, so there's no point in addressing that. In case he's, by the way, one of the most disappointing things for me personally is that Will Fries was not good last year. Just because
I know I liked him a lot in Indy. He put on some good tape, but I also don't think that he was like the catastrophe that he got credit for.
I don't think so, really, but like
no, he just played a little too aggressively to me. Like he said, he didn't like give enough space. He didn't back up with everybody the way that like the rest of the line did. He set up super aggressively. He played a little cocky, I think. Yeah. And that's so fixable. That might, I mean, with Keith Carter now instead of Chris Cooper, like, you might completely nuke that. You might ask everybody else to play that way. And now that's better because everybody's in a line, but he just like didn't get the same depth that the rest of his teammates got. And it led him into some really, really tough spots. So I am not ready to like say that the year 2 leap for guards anyways is fine. I am totally okay with it. I don't think he's a priority to.
Quarterback, we spent a lot of time talking about. Quarterbacks suck in this draft, so it's not worth it. I mean, besides Mendoza, but it's not worth worrying about. Center obviously a need, but there's no first round centers in this class, so it's like not really a first round conversation. Tackle, I don't mind. If they're not going to extend Brian O'Neill, which I think they should just extend Brian O'Neill. Like, he's older, quote unquote, but like tackles last until they're like 39 these days. So like whatever. Just extend him.
And I think they will in late July, early August when that usually happens.
If you're not going to do that, you need to add a tackle now, in my opinion. But like, I think you are, so that's fine. Tight end, I want to get to
like a day 3, like a 4th, 5th round if they end up trading or whatever. I could see a tackle even with one of the thirds just to have competition for Vandemark and Walter Rouse. You just kind of want to add one every couple of years. In that world, but not a priority. Like, we're not looking at Monroe Freeling or anything like that.
Yeah, tight end, like we'll talk about Kenyon Sadiq later, but like first of all, I don't agree with what they did with TJ Hawkinson's contract. Like, I thought it was fine they just eliminated a future year to save $5 million this year, which is pretty dumb to me, honestly, because I know, and I think you're probably more on my side on this. Like, I am not at the general fan base opinion where TJ Hawkinson was like this awful player last year who wasn't contributing. I thought he had a fantastic year as a blocker.
People are insane about TJ Hawkinson.
It's because he didn't put up yards.
He's a top 10 tight end.
Yeah, he was excellent as a blocker.
Fantasy tight end, but you had Justin School in the thing. You need to help that guy. You need to chip him. And then suddenly every route is a flat and a check down. And you've got JJ McCarthy who
never checks down.
Get deep every play. Yeah. Like, he's just going to get ignored. That's why it happens. And we explain that as many times as we want, but ultimately people just see the fantasy stats and they go with that.
And I guess the Vikings see that too. So it's like that consistent conversation was
Hawkinson wanted to be done. I kind of think that they voided the year on his. Well, it was reported that they voided the year on Hawkinson's request.
Well, they
asked him to take a pay cut, and he got pissed about it. That's the problem.
Right. The problem for me is the Vikings asking Hawkinson to take a pay cut. It doesn't make any sense. And I understand, I love seeing the tweets, I should say, that are like, oh, TJ Hawkinson has the highest cap hit for any tight end in the league, and it's like $21 million, and that can't stay because he's not the best player. Like, I'm sorry, cap
We
hits
know.
are not what a guy is getting paid. Like, it's just not what it
Yeah.
is. You got to look at the cash flow and you got to look at the environment. Who is a good tight end in the league that is even eligible for a second contract to be paid more than TJ Hawkinson, right? It's George
Yeah, 'cause
Kittle,
it's been so dry the last few
and
drafts.
it's like, okay, Travis Kelce is ancient and playing worse, right? And then it's George Kittle. And who else is good, right? Like, if you want to list players that are better than him, you can throw Sam Laporta in, which is a somewhat of a conversation for me just because I'm a hater. But you can throw in, Brock Bowers, awesome, great, on a rookie deal, has to be on a rookie deal. Like, the guys who played well last year, basically all on rookie deals. So it's like this market hasn't increased since TJ Hawkinson signed his contract, which is crazy because the cap has gone way, way up, right? Like, he signed the contract as like the second highest paid tight end, and now he's the second highest paid tight end in terms of AAV. Trey McBride makes more money than him, and he's the only one who's actually good who's been eligible for a contract. So of course TJ Hawkinson is going to have the highest cap hit. Sorry, I'm working myself into a frenzy here, but it's just like
Yeah,
that
you're cooking.
that structure of thinking, you just can't look at it that way to me. And it seems like that's what the team was doing. And it's just, I don't know, because they don't want to spend any more money.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Right. And the people making this decision maybe won't be in charge.
Yeah.
Like, this might be Brzezinski trying to, get cute, or this might be, a directive from the Wilfs without a GM thinking that they have to do it or something like I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it's Kevin O'Connell or whatever, but the power structure in place right now will not be the same power structure in a month. Which it maybe can give you outside hope that some of these situations, like with Hawkinson or Grenard or whoever, could be resolved later or whatever. But no, I think the tight end is just a need now and is totally justifiable to take high because your tight end is probably done doing business with you after this season.
Yep. And it's like they didn't need to make it this way, but they did. So running back, obviously not a first round unless Love falls to them, and that seems exceedingly unlikely because I guess he's going fourth overall. But even if he does, like, I wouldn't do it just because of the value of the position personally. But like, that's maybe a little bit hater on running back. Like, I do think Love is a really good player, and then I just don't. Obviously nobody else is worth a first round pick, even a second round pick. I don't know if it's there. So we'll maybe
it's
touch
not
on
a great
that
running back class.
But like, if there was a good running back, I would strongly consider it just because, like, I think they did the right thing with how the running back board fell in free agency. Like, I think they should have kept Aaron Jones. But now you got to figure it out
struck
after
out big
next
time.
year. Yeah, they for sure. On
They were
ETN,
in on Walker and ETN, and they wanted other guys that ended up going back to, like, they really wanted to pick up a free agent running back, and then they just struck out and they went, "Hey, Aaron, the terms of the deal may be altering."
And Aaron
Which
struck
is,
out
again,
too.
like,
I bet is maybe the sad
like
thing.
the collaborative apparatus. We don't really have anyone in charge. We're gonna have a meeting about everything. We're gonna be, reach consensus, is slow. And in free agency, you just miss. You just miss out. I think that they maybe would have been willing to, outbid for Kenneth Walker or for ETN or for whoever. They maybe would have been willing to, like, go for that, but you can't cobble that deal together in a slow apparatus. And I think once you look at that as like, they don't call people back in time because they're, like, having a meeting about it. Suddenly all of these other situations start to line up and make sense about, like, why things were approached the way they were. And it's like, well, because the window closed because they didn't call back and everyone assumed they weren't interested, when in reality, they might have just had two people arguing for too long about it because they're trying to reach consensus about everything.
Yeah. It's just more fun with the current power structure of the Vikings. Anyway, defensive side of the ball, I think defensive tackle, clearly a need. Even if, like, I want to shoot for the moon at defensive tackle personally. Like, I'm not, like, I can sign DJ Reader right now. And we'll get into this when we talk about defensive tackles, right? But like, they should bring in a run stuffing defensive tackle, in my opinion. But like, I'm fine if that's just DJ Reader for a couple $1 million in free agency after the what's the word? The compensatory picks are up, right? Like, I think that'd be great. But
yeah.
But like, and I think one of the young guys, like, maybe I'm willing to take a bet on one of those guys raising. But I'm not willing to bet on it being 2 of Levi, Drake, Rodriguez, Tyrion Ingram, Dawkins, Elijah Williams, Taki Taimani, if you want to throw him in there, all the young defensive tackles they have that I like. So I do think that's a pretty significant need for the team still. And I feel bad by the way, I saw Jalen Redmond officially signed his ERFA tender, and it's like, I feel bad that the players, when they did the CBA, completely screwed him over because he deserves so much more than the minimum salary this year. He's so good.
I think he'll get it. I kind of feel like he's somebody that gets paid like before the season.
I think they need to do what people have done in the past is they've given like the highest level RFA tender as like a 2-year contract. So you get the minimum this year and like the highest level RFA tender money for next year. And that gets you through your 4 years, which is like, I think a pretty reasonable and fair thing to do.
You're in a real extension place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm with you. Like, in terms of the depth, I'd like it as depth, but I think that just because of Levi Drake Rodriguez's athleticism, I think there's a ceiling to that. I think like as more than a rotational player, I would be very nervous. I would be very nervous about that.
I think you can cobble about one starter out of like 3 of those guys. Just rotating him in, but you still need another starter. Is my point? Yeah,
you still need or it's just going to be a situation where we look back in 5 years and you're like, remember when Levi Drake Rodriguez? It'll be like when Dakota Dozier started for a year, Tom Compton started for a year. That you're just going to have a bad player in the position for a year, and that's just going to be what it is. And maybe that's where that goes. I don't trust Levi Drake Rodriguez as an every down guy. Don't mind him as a rotational guy, but even as a rotational guy, you could kind of tell, the backups are in. So I don't trust that. I think Tyrion Ingram Dawkins is also kind of at his best in a rotational kind of third down NASCAR kind of role, if you want to do it that way. I don't see him as like an every down player.
Agreed.
And we're just super like light on beef. We just need bigger men because if the D-line's going to be that small, everyone's going to go 12 personnel and just punch us in the mouth.
Yeah. For positional need, edge rusher depends entirely on Jonathan Grenard. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when the Vikings don't just extend Jonathan Grenard and pay him like $30 million a year on the extra years of the extension, but like whatever.
Nobody can authorize the check. Nobody can authorize the budget, Pat.
I finally found a trade compensation that I would accept for Jonathan Grenard, and his name is Dexter Lawrence, and they're not going to do that because they don't want to pay Jonathan Grenard money, so they're not going to want to pay Dexter Lawrence money. So
swapping impossible.
Otherwise, getting a second round pick for Jonathan Grenard would be such a disappointment to me. I would be so upset at that limited level of compensation for the level of player that we're giving away. I mean, and I understand like the dynamics of the NFL, like people aren't going to give up a first plus, but to me, he's a first plus type of player, just how he plays on the football field. So
I believe that it has fallen through. I think that there were trade agreements the reporting is that nobody could find the contract with Jonathan Grenard. I think he learned his market wasn't what he thought it was. And I think that trade talks have fallen through and that Grenard will remain with the Vikings. That's my prediction right now. And it's different than what my prediction was 2 months ago. So I think it'll be okay. But even without him, I mean, Van Ginkel's a contract year. What do you get out of Turner? Is Grenard going to stay? Now there's a contract problem. Now he's frustrated with the org. Like I wouldn't mind adding in that position at all. Just not the highest priority versus like safety and D-tackle and center and stuff.
Corner, I'd love to add a real start, like high level outside corner to the team, or corner in general. Like I really love Byron Murphy, but like obviously I think Pierre and Rodgers are like fringe starters, so you can always upgrade on that. Don't let good be the enemy of great, right? Linebacker, linebacker's a hard one for me because I want the team to extend Cashman, so it's like I don't know how much I want to go all in on a linebacker, and obviously they gave the money to Wilson, right? And they gave him a 3-year deal, right? But it's like that's also one of those where don't let the good in Eric Wilson be the enemy of great in a linebacker that we really like if they're available. And then safety, it's such an annoying thing, right? Because the Vikings have all of these players, especially on defense, where it's like, okay, you can put this guy on the field. Like he's not going to be just an absolute catastrophe. And you could maybe argue the other way about Theo Jackson, right? But like, you know, we can make it work with these guys because we proved we made it work with these guys like last year. Right? Like for the most part on the Vikings defense. But it'd be really nice to actually get somebody who's really good in there. And that feels like it could take Brian Flores' defense to the next level. So like outside of Metellus, I'm really looking to replace, you know, Theo Jackson and Jay Ward, just because, again, maybe I trust one of those two to turn out to be an acceptable level starter, but it's really hard for me to do both, right? It's like a Reef's theory where if you have a competition and one of the guys beats the other guy, like you have a pretty decent opportunity that guy's good. But like if you only have one guy, you have no idea whether or not he's going to be good.
It's like you ever see that thing that's like, oh God, the worst thing in the world happened to me. I became important at work.
Yes,
I
that
feel
was
like that's Flores's secondary. Yeah, right. It's like we need a word for it, like Band-Aid-itis, where like, yeah, you papered this over and it was okay, but that cannot be plan A. The fact that you overcame it does not mean that it was not a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the way that secondary has been for Flores' defense since he got here. So I would love to get someone serious. I know that they've tried and that scene in Booth and it didn't work out and all that. That shouldn't shy you away. Get somebody serious. I think, I would be absolutely stunned if there was not a safety or somebody listed as corner that could be a safety like Traden Stukes somewhere in the top 75 for the Vikings.
Me too. I mean, and I guess they're scared to take corners in the first now because it just didn't work out for the longest time.
Still
like,
reeling from the Mike Zimmer streaks of taking a corner every other year, which was good and worked.
And Andrew Booth
continue to do that.
Also Andrew Booth.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into actually talking about prospects.
Spielman's wife has done immeasurable damage to the organization.
Yeah, let's get into talking about some actual prospects. We'll start at safety, where I'm sure you and Forno have the spiciest take in the Vikings sphere.
He's way further on it than I.
Oh, I know.
I don't want to be put in the category with Dylan Thieneman as a third rounder and Tyler Forno. I'm not there with him. All right, that's his take.
All right, so let's talk about Thieneman and McNeil Warren, and you can throw Traden Stukes in there as well. If you've watched anybody else, feel free to talk about them too.
Yeah, I've watched a handful of safeties. So Downs obviously is like that dude. He plays a lot like Harrison Smith, where he will align in places that are kind of psycho.
Yeah, Downs is your actual Harrison Smith replacement, by the way. Like that's
your actual Harrison
he's the
Smith
dude.
Replacement. Yeah.
If he somehow falls to the Vikings,
if he does, it means that everybody's way more worried about that knee problem, whatever it was, than we knew. So that's the guy. I don't think he will. I think he's gone in like top 6, top 7, something like that. So the next guy on everybody's board is Thieneman. Here's my deal on Thieneman. He is small and fast. That's like the way that he plays. He does not hit with a lot of authority, which for a safety, for somebody that's going to be like rocking and rolling down into the box, or somebody that's going to be a blitzer or whatever, I kind of like everybody's running back can pick him up. And I think that that's an issue for your safety. That's not true of Harrison Smith. That's not true. That wasn't true of like Cam Bynum could win one of those. So I think that's really important for safety, and that's like a box he just doesn't check for me. But the big one is footwork. And I did a Patreon video, patreon.com/Luke Braun NFL, that was about like a lot of his video was about footwork. And basically he just runs in an out of control way that makes it really difficult for him to change direction, even if he could do so well in like a short shuttle or something, which I don't think he ran the agilities, which I'm also a little concerned about. Because I wonder if he doesn't think he will get a very good time. And it's better to just have a DNP on there. So I don't love it as a Vikings fit. I don't think that he should be asked to do what Viking safeties are asked to do a lot, which is line up on the line of scrimmage, sim pressure, fall out into a hook zone or maybe even a deep zone, and then stick your foot in the ground and then run back into the flat or something when it's a bubble screen because you simmed pressure. I don't trust him to do all that change of direction efficiently enough to get there. He's got recovery speed, long speed, but I feel like this is a guy you can juke, you can run a route on, that you can, like, I think he gets juked into oblivion by Jahmyr Gibbs twice a year. Like, that's the concern that I have. So if they take him, I'm open to it. And he's such a jock. He's just such an athlete that, like, you could say, okay, but I would kind of call him a project here.
Yeah.
Put him on a Fangio scheme where he can like knife down from the roof. then I think that that's excellent, where he's not changing direction as much as just point and shoot. Then I think that that works out great. He could be an awesome player for like the Eagles. But I am not the only person that has watched him and then gotten like Lewis Cine thoughts.
Well, so you're not the only person who's watched him and gotten Lewis Cine thoughts, because guess who he played for in college? Dan
See?
Lanning, who was the
Oh,
Georgia
wow.
defensive coordinator. Yeah. So that's
that
why
maybe
he's Lewis
explains
Cine. So my entire draft process, Dylan Thieneman, and I looked it up, did not run Agilities, by the way. My entire draft process has been basically listening to the Read Optional podcast. So it's a Substack. It's Ollie Connolly and John Ledyard are the ones doing the Substack. They, to me, like, on a podcast, if you're looking for high level football talk, like from a league wide perspective, and Ollie, he's British, but he's like very heavily steeped in the Bill Belichick way of things, which I think is relevant for the Vikings in a lot of ways. But
like schematically.
So I think I don't know. Go check out Read Optional Substack. It's great. Their draft content. There's a couple free ones. They're doing like 2-hour episodes and covering like 5 prospects. It's awesome. They go super deep on these guys. I love the way they talk ball. I feel like a lot of draft coverage is just like, oh, this guy's athletic, but he needs to work on his technique. But nobody actually talks about like what the athleticism means and how it's like functional.
Instincts in the run.
Yeah. You get like 2-second snippets, which I realize is important for like TV draft coverage, right? But like they talk about the position as it relates to the league, what this guy does and what roles he can fit in there, and go through the levels of technique and what he needs to learn and that sort of thing. So I think they do a really good job with that. The first thing out of their mouths was, oh no, I was somewhat concerned this is Lewis Cine again, because he's playing the exact Lewis Cine role. I think a lot of draft people and a lot of defensive people I respect on like Deontay Lee, they all liked Lewis Cine coming out of the draft. Like, I don't think that was a terrible pick by the Vikings. I think it was the player didn't work out, right? And the role projection, I'm sure, is part of that. But what was interesting is they actually went back to the Purdue tape, which was the year before, where he's more of a high, like a post safety, right? A cover 3 post safety. And they really liked that tape because he basically understood everything that needed to go on the defense, was putting out fires everywhere, and showed the athletic ability to be able to make that work on a consistent basis. So I think that if you're asking Thieneman to do the Cam Bynum role, like that's what I would want Thieneman to do on the Vikings. And I think that can be a really valuable role individually, but it's not Harrison Smith, right? Is the thing that...
Right. You have to stop thinking about like, replace Harrison Smith,
exactly.
Harrison Smith. No, just get another safety, get a new plan.
Yeah. And why don't we replace Cam Bynum, who we did a terrible job of replacing last year, right? Like that seems like it's pretty valuable too.
I would be open to that for sure. There is just no world in a Brian Flores defense where even that guy still is going to have to show that like agility.
Sure.
So I just think that he fits elsewhere better. That's kind of the extent of my take. But I have him as like a low first too. Yeah. So I would call 18. Oh, we reached like a little bit is what I would say, and then I would probably never talk about reach or steal about it again. So, but that's where I'm at on him. I like the idea of day 2 safety better too. There's so many DBs in day 2 that like you don't have to spend your first round pick on the guy that is getting the most hype, especially when, and it sounds like some people don't even have him as safety 2 in this draft. Some people have him lower than somebody like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who I think is very raw.
What do you think of McNeil-Warren if we move to him?
So whenever I watch somebody from a small school, you got to do the small school test of, does this guy look dominant? Like he shouldn't be here. And I didn't get that from McNeil-Warren. There were some plays where he was awesome, where he was productive, but I didn't get like, oh, this guy like is the key dude on this whole defense. He's the NFL player among a bunch of, whoever's. I didn't really get that. That's not to say that I like hate him or anything like that. He's clearly an athlete. He is, I just think, really raw with his footwork.
Sure.
And the way that like he doesn't like take steps. There's also the mouthpiece thing. Have you heard of the mouthpiece thing with him?
No. Is he always playing with it, or what's he doing?
So he misses snaps because he puts it in late,
Oh my
and then he's
God.
late, right? Like, and when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's the root of like every problem I had with him. So like, is there a discipline issue? You probably would want. I would want to bring him in for a top 30 visit and ask him about this, right? Uh, and then if the answer I get is satisfying, then I'm probably a lot more willing to like project development for him moving forward. So I do see him as, sometimes you see raw and you think it's an insult, and sometimes you see raw and you go, ooh, potential. Because I see the vision where this guy like turns into this
Yeah,
crazy athletic, really good safety. I just think it's going to take some time. I think there's a little assembly required there, and people putting him as like a second round kind of dude is probably, or like, early second, late first. I'm a little lower on him than that, but not on like Thieneman, not by enough where it's worth like getting in a bunch of arguments over.
sure.
If they took him at 18, I would say, well, okay, they reached pretty hard there. But if it was one of those things where they trade down to the back of the first or the top of the second, and then they take him there, I'd be fine. Like, this is going to be a guy on Mel Kiper's best available as day 2 starts, and that's fine. But
Yeah, and I think part of the problem with this draft is like this draft class just kind of sucks. Like, so there's like the 3 or 4 guys at the very top, and then I think a lot of the guys you see after that, people are like, okay, these aren't the guys who were going 10th overall last year, right? I'm just trying to think of a name, but like you don't have the Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, who is the Eagles corner, that's awesome, Quinyon Mitchell. Like you don't have that level of prospect in the 10 to 20 range. It's the step beyond that where those guys get into the, late first, early second range that a lot of the prospects just in general in the draft are. So it's kind of frustrating.
it would suck to be in the 20s in this draft,
Yeah.
I think.
So we talked a lot about defensive tackle, or about the defensive tackle need, right? Like I think we both think it's a need. I'd be willing to draft a defensive tackle in the first round. I just don't know if there is a first round defensive tackle. Have you watched any guys at DT, or you haven't really gotten into them?
So, yeah, so I kind of had to eschew defensive tackle this year just to prioritize other positions and stuff. Like I kind of let DT be by the wayside. That's not me saying it's not important. That's just like where I've focused my attention. So I only know what I've read and like osmosis. I haven't watched, I've read. So I know like Peter Woods is the only one that's got like pass rush juice. So he's the one that people get most
Incorrect.
excited about.
The one that has pass rush juice is Caleb Banks, in my opinion.
Does he? The foot injury is kind of all I know about him. Is double foot injury. Everybody's worried he's going to fall. That's kind of all I know about him. But you probably know way more about.
So I haven't watched a ton of these guys, but like Caleb Banks is the only one who's even worth sniffing a first round pick to me. Peter Woods, from my understanding, is kind of the guy who got hyped as like he's going to be the next big thing, and then he never became the next big thing, and he had a really disappointing year at Clemson, and he didn't even test. Right? Like he ran the 10-yard split and not a 40-yard dash, and we don't have athletic testing on him. And you're telling me that he's sub 300 pounds. He was sub 300 pounds. And this is going to be like a juice guy because he wasn't willing to test. Like that's really concerning to me.
How do you run just the 10-yard split?
I have no idea. I don't think so. You can Google it though. Like he ran just a 10-yard split. I don't even know how that's like. You just stop after 10 yards, I guess, because you don't want to go the full 40. But like
it was pro day, so they let him do whatever
at his pro day, so they let him do whatever he wants. He didn't test at the combine. Like this guy, to me, just based on the profile, is not worth a first round pick. Like you got to have serious questions about that, and being sub 300. I don't know. Like if your concern was the Vikings didn't hold up well in the run game at all, a sub 300, pass rush first defensive tackle is not going to fix that. I also don't think a run defense only defensive tackle is worth anywhere near a first round pick because, like I said earlier, I can sign DJ Reader right now. Now, granted, like some of the other good run stopping guys went, but like Roy Lopez, who's a good run stopping defensive tackle, like he is what you're hoping for if you take a Lee Hunter, in my opinion, because you're not going to get pass rush juice from those guys at all. He got $5 million in free agency. Why am I spending, a first round pick on a guy who's worth $5 million? Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
For Caden McDonald, none of these guys might be first round picks at all.
Like the only one I've seen is Caden McDonald, and he doesn't have pass rush juice. Like, how happy do you think the Lions are with Tyleik Williams, who they took in the first round last year, who's like this similar player? Like, it's just not. It's just not worth it in the first round.
I forgot about Tyreek. I liked him.
Yeah.
That's probably those guys are probably all day 2 then.
Yeah.
Like that's the rumor, so I think that will vindicate you. But that's a conversation I'll step out of.
Yeah. I would like I don't know. I was just if you think about the best run stopping defensive tackles for the past 10 years, right? Like Brandon Williams for the Ravens was a big one. Like Michael Pierce, who came to us eventually, right? Also a Ravens guy. Snacks Harrison. Like Brandon Williams and Harrison Phillips, if you want to count him in like a good run stopping defensive tackle, they were drafted in the 90s, right? Like I can't think of a guy who's a high level run stopper and not like a freak pass rusher. Like a Jeffrey Simmons or a Dexter Lawrence are obviously freaks of freaks, right? But like other guys who are noses, they just aren't that valuable. It's just really hard for me to see it. So another rant there, but it's just like not worth it. And it doesn't sound like the guys are going in the first round. So corner, have you watched any of the corners? I think you watched Terrell, I know.
Yes. I've watched several of the corners. I have watched Jermon McCoy, Avion Terrell, and Mansour Delane.
Perfect. That's who I want to hear about.
I haven't really gotten to the day 2 guys because I think all 3 of those are figured to be first rounders. So Jermon's my favorite. His tape is my favorite by a mile. Obviously, the knee, what's the deal there? You got to ask those questions. He's the guy I took in the Locked On NFL mock draft.
Perfect.
And I traded up for him. So I was really excited to see him fall. I legit think this is a Derek Stingley situation where, yes, the knee is concerning. Is he going to be healthy? Stingley has had injury issues, but when he's on the field, Stingley's a dog. Like that's a dude.
Yep.
I think this could be somebody that legit erases a guy. And one thing we have not gotten the privilege of seeing, I want to reshape the way people talk about corner. We have not, it's not that we haven't needed a corner, it's that we've been able to overcome bad corners or older corners, Shaquille Griffins who can't make another team. We've had Fabian Moreau. We have very frequently had cornerbacks on the field who other teams have deemed unrosterable. Not we didn't want him for his cap hit, but you're gone at the 53, you're on the practice squad.
Yes.
And we've overcome that. Great. That does not mean that you should plan to. And what we have not gotten the privilege of seeing is what Flores can do with a corner that just freaking rules. So for him, he's just an absolutely phenomenal mover. And that's what I like the most about him, just as an athlete, just the fluidity, smooth hips, fast, agile, fantastic mover, just very good at getting from point A to point B, change direction. If you want to talk about footwork, like with Thieneman, it is fantastic teach tape awesomeness. Can basically get into press alignments with reckless abandon, can do anything from press, can keep his feet flat and off coverage as long as he wants because he can always turn and run because he's so agile. So he can play like a maniac and still stick with guys. And when I say guys, I mean, one of the games I watched here was against Jeremiah Smith. Like, doesn't get any better than that in college football in 2024. So I absolutely adore the tape. I think it's phenomenal corner tape. The injury is a problem. He's 188 pounds, so how helpful is he going to be to you in the run? That's an issue. There were some coverage busts that I was concerned about, but as a college player, it's like, that's all just being young, and you're going to see that kind of all over college football. So those are the concerns. But he is, to me, even with the knee injury concern, he is CB1 to me. He is the guy that I want on the Vikings the most, which is why I traded up for him. I saw Mansour Delane go in that draft, and I was like, you know what? I had a deal in place with Tampa. It was I traded 97 for 155 to go up 3 spots in the first. I did it. Avion Terrell is very Flores-y to me. I really do think this guy could be the pick.
Okay.
Not only with the like peanut punch stuff, but very aggressive downhill corner. Another one that I think can play very. He's a good mover. I think he's a good player. I'm trying to pull up my notes here.
Sure. So while you're doing that, on Delane, just from listening to, I already told you what my sources, right? John and Ollie, they're like, Delane is, or I'm sorry, on McCoy, Jamal McCoy, I had Delane first.
Oh, yeah.
They think he is the guy. They also think Delane is the guy. Like, they think that they are true high-level talents at the corner position. Delane, did you see that as well? Or are you...
I did not. I saw Delane as like a little bit more of a mid player. I see him as an NFL starter, but just like an average one.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't make a video about him, but I just remember seeing I remember having legit questions, not I'm raising questions, but legitimately I had to ask people, "Hey, is this guy fast?" I can't.
So their comparison for him was Kamari Lassiter, who famously ran a
Oh,
4.6 or something,
well, that's a good way to
but
sell it to me. I love
he's
that guy.
he's awesome in the NFL, right? He's fantastic on the
Yeah.
Texans. So it's you get that kind of vibe where is he athletic? And I guess he ran a 4.3 at his pro day, but that's probably fake. Um,
Yeah.
so
So one of the ways he plays is he is like a mug you down the field kind of corner,
mhm,
monster lane. Um, and I thought that he's going to get flags in the NFL that he wouldn't get in college. Like he would be 15 yards
sure.
down the field, fully extending on guys. It's like you're going to get called for
Yep.
that every time here. And he grabs sometimes, and he plays a little bit more aggressively and flat-footed and stuff. Um, I don't love. So I like his top end speed, but I don't love how he accelerates. That's been the thing that makes me feel like I just keep thinking of Nid. Like I just think
Okay.
he's okay. And an okay corner is not something you take in the 6th round, right? Like that's
Yeah.
still a guy that you want to take. I put him just because I know consensus disagrees with me a lot. I put him as a late first, but just to kind of defer to that a little bit. Uh, um, but I wasn't quite as inspired by his tape. And then with Avion Terrell, that is the big thing about him is he forced 9 fumbles and he's like a peanut punch kind of guy. He is also a big catch technique, flat foot, take the charge kind of guy.
Sure.
A great natural mover. He's another guy that's hurt though. He suffered a hamstring injury in the pre-draft process, so
Yep.
that's gonna probably keep him out of a lot of that. He's gonna be like Darisaw, where you don't get your whole first camp, and is that gonna mess with your
Mhm.
development?
So would you have Terrell over Delane probably if you were stacking
I
them?
do,
Okay. Yeah.
I do, and I'm not gonna really
Sure.
argue with anybody about that though. If they want to disagree with me, I think that's perfectly fine. These are all first round corners.
Yeah. So just going to another potential first round pick, and I see this guy at the Vikings, and I don't really get it. And I'll talk a little bit about what I think of the player profile after I let you speak. But Kenyon Sadiq at tight end, right? He's the only first round potential tight end. Obviously, the Vikings, we talked about them having a future tight end need, even if they don't need it this year. Do you think Sadiq is a player they should be taking in the first round, or are you kind of out on it?
I so I feel like I'm doing the boss baby meme a lot, where guy who has only seen Irv Smith compared every move tight end to Irv
Yes.
Smith. Um, but I do get a vibe there of I think he is an at best okay college blocker. The way that he blocks is sometimes he does it. He leads without his hands. He leaves his chest totally open. Contact is soft. Doesn't move his feet well. Um, I think when it comes to short routes, like choice or whip routes or the kind of stuff that a McVay offense would ask a guy to run, that is not his best. I think he is a straight line speed tight end. And I know he has a better athletic profile than Irv Smith, but I still get the same vibe of okay, you can run a post with him. And that's pretty rare for a
Yeah.
tight end. That's kind of fun. You can run a deep dig with him. That's pretty fun. But at a certain point, this guy's just a large receiver. And yeah, you can have him dig out a nickel. You can have Jalen Naylor do that too. I don't really see what he does that improves upon what the Vikings could have asked Jalen Naylor to do. And that's not a first round pick to me. So
Yeah.
I'm calling him a second round guy in general, just mostly because he's going to have at best the Colston Loveland role of tight end too to start out. And that
Hmm.
switched as the year went on. But this guy feels like if you have a Kyle Rudolph, this is a very fun guy to add to that. But if you don't, then I'm a little worried. So if the
And
Vikings took him and put him behind Hawkinson for a year, ask him to bulk up, okay, I can see the vision there, but it's definitely not the thing I'm most excited about.
And if I have a Kyle Rudolph, why am I taking this kind of guy in the first round? Right? To me,
Exactly.
the issue is, okay, if I want to have a tight end who I'm taking in the first round, I want him to be an inline blocker who unlocks things for me in the passing game. Because the
Yeah.
Irv Smith move tight end problem for me is when the Vikings drafted Irv Smith, people were all like, "Oh, he can run routes like a wide receiver." Well, no, he can't. Is the
Right.
thing.
I don't
It
think
turns
Sadiq
out.
can either.
And like even if you have a player who can run routes with a wide receiver, you have Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is like a phenomenal prospect, like a great thing, but he's a wide receiver 3, right? He got franchise tagged and he's been disappointing relative to his draft stock because he just doesn't have in my opinion, the linear movement profile is not what you need at tight end. It's not what's necessarily successful. And I think you look at just think about the best tight ends in the league. I think you can describe Kittle as a linearly explosive player. I think he might be the one you can describe as a linearly explosive player who's an absolute demon after the catch, right? I don't know if he is as side-to-side quick movement as some of the other guys, but George Kittle is also the best blocking tight end in the league. Sadiq's not coming in as the best blocking tight end in the league. He's not even close. He's a guy who's
coming in as a guy you put in a double because you got to hide him because you're in 12 persons.
You have to hide him. If you think about guys who are successful immediately, I think Brock Bowers, right? He's not the fastest straight line guy, but he's a really good quick mover, especially for somebody his size. Trey McBride, similar to that. Travis Kelce has made his entire living off of being just a quick mover, great at finding in zones, finding open space everywhere. Right? Like just the ability to find open space. That's not a linear athlete profile. The linear athlete profiles at tight end are like Vernon Davis, right? Who's an example who had one good year in his career. Kyle Pitts, I think, is another example. I think you could describe Rob Gronkowski as a linear athlete, but like he's just his own thing. Like he's a one-of-one type of player. And also Kenyon Sadiq is 6'3". Right? He's not some contested catch maven, which also helps you with that mold of receiver. Right? Like Colson Loveland, I think a lot of his success last year was because I think he is a good linear athlete, but he's making a ton of contested catches. If you look at the tight ends who were successful last year, like you're not winning on deep down the field routes necessarily. You're winning on all this short stuff where you make something happen after the catch because you're big and you're quick enough to make stuff happen. Like that's exactly what Trey McBride does. I would use examples in the second round last year, second and third round, like the tight end, the Rams drafted Terrence Ferguson, something like that. I forget his full name. I think his last name's Ferguson.
Kobe Ferguson?
Colby Parkinson is a different
guy. I know
guy.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was 81.
He was an Oregon tight end, which is kind of funny because Sadiq was also there at that time.
There's another tight end in Oregon that's going to come out next year that I actually like a lot more.
But he was a linearly explosive athlete. He didn't produce in year one. You know who's like this shifty after the catch, like fantastic 3-cone athlete who did produce a ton? Harold Fannin, right? Because you can dump that guy passes and he can make things happen after the catch. That's my concern. What routes are you going to ask him to run?
Sorry. Yeah. What routes do tight ends run? They run choice, they run returns, sometimes they'll run a crosser or something like that. And everybody daydreams about the idea where you get to run 4 verticals and a tight end vertical isn't the slow one. But even with somebody like Kyle Pitts on your team, you still have that guy running out into the flat and just trying to get, or just taking a quick slant over the middle or a quick OTB over the middle or a quick hook or something. And just trying to get yards after the catch with that. That guy does that all the time, no matter how athletic he is. If he doesn't, you just drafted a wide receiver. Just call him a wide receiver.
Yeah, and if you're putting him in the positions where you need to run the fast routes just because of the timing of the offense, he's not in the tight end position anyway, so he's not giving you the tight end benefit. Like, that's what I don't see.
Now you've put him out in the slot, and great, you've spread guys out. But again, Jalen Naylor does that.
Yeah.
So, like, the route, like it or not, the tight end will be running routes that are predicated on agility and being able to, accelerate out of that break. That one TJ Hawkinson route that went viral that everybody hated, right? That's not a straight line speed thing. That was an agility thing. That was him, kind of not getting. I thought he ran that same route the next week, like way better. So it was, but that's the example of stuff that I'd be worried about here. And I kind of saw that whenever he was asked to run a return route, it lumbered and a corner could super easily mirror it.
Yeah.
And
like
so
Hawkins,
I see him as a second round player. That's probably a crazy hot take because I think he still contributes to an offense. I think he comes in right away and he's not like a backup or anything like that. That puts you in the top 50, but not a let's pick him at 18 and replace Hawkinson. And oh my God, we got the next guy. Like, I don't think he's that dude.
I think the player profile and who he is as an athlete is like very exciting, right? And you can let your imagination run wild with who he is. And then you look at like the practical reality of what teams are going to do and it just doesn't fit, right? It's like, taking a Bugatti on like back country roads, right? Like I'd rather have a tuner that can actually move quickly, right, around curves and stuff than be fast in a straight line.
Yeah.
So like it's just a mismatch in terms of the athletic profile is a fantastic athletic profile. Like the player could be a really good player, but I just don't see how it fits within the offense because like TJ Hawkinson can run vertical stuff with me. I promise he can still run vertical stuff. He does it. I promise it's there.
Yes. Yes. And another year removed from that knee
Yeah.
injury may be better even if he's a year older.
Yeah. So anyway, running backs, I know you watched a couple guys, nobody in the first round, but just give me a short on, are you taking anybody who you watched on day 2 even?
Once you get to past like the top 75, I think whatever. I think somebody like Jonah Coleman is fine. Emma Johnson's fine. There's a lot of Madisons. There's a lot of kind of not very bursty. They'll get you your 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guys. I haven't really like fallen head over heels in love with anybody, but I also pulled off the running backs pretty quick when once Aaron Jones came back. I thought, maybe not. So I think this is probably more of a day 3 thing for them, and they get somebody. I know they met with like Seth McGowan, the Kentucky running back, is one name. So there's a couple of guys they met with that are like 5th, 6th round, and maybe they get with one of those picks. But I don't think there's anybody outside of Jeremiah Love that anybody should be remotely excited about. And
Sure.
by the time they're going off the board, you're probably going to be bored of the draft.
Yeah, fair enough. And then the last position. Well, I actually skipped it. Sorry. Let's go back to centers because I know day 2 centers is a huge thing. Have you watched like all of the guys, or who have you watched at least?
I've watched the 4 you have on your breakdown here.
Great.
Which are Jake Slaughter, Connor Lew, Sam Hecht, and Logan Jones. They do muddy together to me a lot. Connor Lew stood out of that group to me. I put him as like a second round player with an injury concern because he's dealing with is still dealing with that injury that he got in 2025 and will probably miss offseason, I think.
Yeah.
Because he got rolled up nasty too. Like that's the bummer of it. That it was just, kind of a guy falling into his leg at the wrong angle. He was the only guy that really got me excited, and part of that is because he made CJ Allen look weak in blitzes.
Nice. I was going to say, my understanding is all the guys are kind of light in the pants a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I kind of take that back a little bit because now I've watched CJ Allen, and CJ Allen just does that on the blitz. Sometimes he just comes in soft. So like maybe that wasn't as impressive as I thought it was when I only had context of knowing CJ Allen was like a first roundish guy. But I think Connor Lew has an anchor. Like he is able to stop up a bull rush. And I like his eyes, and I liked his tape a little bit more. As for like Slaughter and Logan Jones, a little bit light in the pants. I think I actually have Sam Hecht over those 2 guys. I just thought that was a little bit more solid, and the ways to the way to beat Sam Hecht. Like Sam Hecht is also not somebody like none of these guys I think are day 1 starters. And the only one that I have a chance to be is Connor Lew, and I don't think he's going to be healthy on day 1. So like it's moot. So these are pick 82, pick 97 kind of guys. And honestly, if the Vikings, like I've kind of gotten to a place where if the Vikings don't draft one of them, if there's a run on these guys and they miss out, I would be like, I don't know what you do with, I would be bummed about what that means for the future of the position. But I honestly don't know if these guys make an impact on like against a Blake Brandel that learned how to snap.
Yeah, and that's kind of the frustrating thing for me is like you look at sorry to go back to the beginning of this podcast, but like you look at the Vikings approach to free agency, right? And like safety is a bigger one to me, but like there were so many options at safety in free agency. There were just so many starting caliber guys available, and you completely sat that out, right? You didn't make offers to frickin' anybody. And now you're like pigeonholing yourself into taking a safety in the first round of the draft is what it looks like. And, we can talk about whether Thieneman's worth it at that spot, but it's like center is a similar thing where it's like, okay, now all of these centers in the draft, really, are you going to have a day 1 starter? And now you're stuck with Blake Brandel. And center was a lot thinner in free agency. Like, I'm not saying it's necessarily their fault, but like the Lions signed Cade Mays. I like that idea. They could have just gone out and solved the position. And then maybe you could have just moved, I don't know, crazy idea, moved Blake Brandel back to tackle, and he could have been your swing tackle where he plays pretty well. I know that's insane, but like spend money at center to save money at swing tackle seems kind of like it might be smart considering how much tackles get paid. But
I have a theory about it, and that's that this is a decision. The center decisions have all been made very emotionally,
oh yeah,
and they've been made like by Kevin O'Connell, right? Like London, that trip was emotional. That trip was really difficult on everybody, like in a very personal way. Because it was, just difficult to do the international thing, to do the back to back. That was grueling. It was very tough. It was tough to practice on a soccer field in the middle of England. So it was just tough on everybody to do that whole big long work trip. That took a lot out of everybody. So by the time you get to the last day of your trip, which is the game against the Browns, and you've benched Michael Juergens because he screwed up like 4 run IDs in the second half against the Steelers. And he went, we're putting in this, and he's got a hamstring injury anyways, but he did go into that game briefly. So like, whatever. Like he was suited up, I think. He went in against the Eagles after the bye. But like because Blake Brandel kind of held up, now you gave him all the help in the world. You ran, everything was a bubble screen away from Myles Garrett. So, but like, because he wasn't the disaster you were so expecting him to be, because there's so many negative thoughts when you're that stressed out and tired, and like everything's gone wrong, and you're 2-2, and JJ McCarthy's still hurt, and everybody's wondering about soft benching, and you're way too online. And he gives you a glimmer of hope by having a halfway reasonable game against a pretty good D-line. And I think that made Kevin O'Connell go like this guy made me feel good fifis, and so he's in. And I think that really like happened. Like, and you could go back and justify it and say, well, you blocked pretty well and stuff, but like you had a center on purpose for weeks who couldn't snap over the guy who you had designated as your backup center a month before that. Like 5 weeks ago, that was your center, and you changed your mind to a guy who couldn't snap. And I genuinely think that it's because that, like, this is the accusation I've been levying at Kevin O'Connell, is that these decisions have been kind of emotional and by the seat of his pants and on the fly, and not made with that kind of cold distance that you need with these kinds of decisions. And I think that he loves Blake Brandel. Everybody loves Blake Brandel and wants to give him another chance. Didn't work out at guard, maybe it'll work out at center. But it does kind of feel like we're going, oh, we traded Ezra Cleveland and Blake Brandel kind of held up okay. Let's just run that for 24, because we're just doing that again. And this time he's got to learn how to snap. He's got to learn a whole new skill.
It's the same defensive Band-Aid solution that you talked about earlier, applying to the offensive line. I totally agree. It's just, it is what it is. He'll have an offseason to learn how to snap. So hopefully he figures that out.
He is.
Yeah.
He's been told, you're a center, learn how to snap. Yep. So I honestly, I think as a center blocker, he did do okay. And the problems I had with him were mostly related to having late hands after snapping, because he didn't know how to snap and strike at the same time. So if he can learn how to do that, okay, maybe there's potential here. But he's also never been that good at picking up stunts. He's never been the best pass protector. He's never been, at tackle, at guard, at whatever. He's been a backup quality player. I don't think you suddenly just show up because you and learn a brand new skill, and then that's the thing that you're best at instead of the thing you've been doing your whole life. So I still think the future of center is very much in flux. We need somebody. Maybe you can hope that Michael Juergens has a John Sullivan-esque arc where by year 4 he's a guy and he developed and he did the thing. But like, it's another one of these things that like we got to start flashing the red lights here a little bit, and pulling the fire alarm on another position.
So to be fair to Blake Brandel, starting centers in the NFL in general are like bad. There's not a lot of good ones.
True.
So it's just, and I guess the ones coming into the league aren't that great either. Like they're day 2 kind of developmental, maybe can't start right away type of guys that are coming in the league. I just don't think the pipeline supply is there. They don't make Creed Humphreys everywhere who are like 330 pounds, can block anybody and actually run an offense from the center position. So it's hard. But why don't we talk about linebackers? And then wrap it up here, Luke. Linebacker I see is a huge second round thing. So who have you watched a linebacker? Give me your notes on those guys.
Yeah. So I haven't even bothered with Sonny Styles. He'll be long gone. Not my business. CJ Allen, I'm working on a video. I'm hoping I can finish it right after I get off this podcast here, about CJ Allen. He is that dude. Holy moly. That dude is making me feel things in a way that I very rarely feel in the draft. CJ Allen, you know how we just talked a lot about like, a tight end, but it's really just a receiver and you just are calling it a tight end, because CJ Allen is kind of the flip side of that. where it's like having another safety on the field, but you get the size and physicality of a linebacker. He
Incredible.
runs stuff down like a safety, like from the same position, toss play to the other side. He's the weak side linebacker, and he will flash past all of his teammates on Georgia and
Oh my
make that
God.
play. Like this is not
Yep.
Toledo.
And he was at
He's a
Alabama
fantastic
before Georgia,
tackler.
right? I think he was at Alabama before Georgia.
Was he? I
Yeah.
only watched the Georgia part. I usually only focus on the last season of a guy because guys change so much as
Oh, yeah.
OCs change and they transfer and it's a new defense and all that stuff. And it's like, whoever you were when you were 19 years old is just, I mean, who's the same guy at 19 and they are at 22 like ever. So I
No,
just
he was at Georgia all 3 years, which is also great.
he was at Georgia all 3 years. Okay. Yeah. He is a fantastic block shedder, fantastic block deconstructor. He comes in soft in the blitz a little bit sometimes. That's the concern I have, which means maybe this isn't a Flores thing. Maybe this guy will be really, really good somewhere else and we'll be mad that we passed on him or something. But he's so fast and he's fast enough to like erase run angles and make a real impact. I think this feels like the dude that like the Ravens or Eagles draft in the 20s and you go, how did we let this happen again?
Yeah.
Like this feels like that guy to me. So I am head over heels. I'm over the moon for CJ Allen. I watched Anthony Hill. I don't think he's a very good athlete. I know he tested well. I don't think he's a great change of direction athlete, and to the point where it is detrimental and people get an angle on him. I also want to watch Jake Golday and Jacob Rodriguez. I haven't gotten a ton done on those guys, but I'll get to them before the draft actually starts. They're kind of the last couple guys on my list that hopefully I can get to before Thursday.
I think that's really funny because listening to John and Ollie, John was like struggling, like, do I put CJ Allen in the same tier as Sonny Styles? Do I do that? And I think he ended up eventually having him a tier below Sonny Styles, but he was like, I love this dude. The other thing with Allen,
I know the first thing about Sonny Styles, so
is the athletic testing. I guess was like he didn't do athletic testing. I think he had a medical recheck thing at the combine, and people are concerned about his athleticism, which is funny from you, where it's like it just doesn't show up on the tape at all that he lacks athleticism, where Hill's the opposite, and that's my understanding of Hill as well, where it's like, oh, he's this great tester, and it just doesn't show up on the field. I think it probably just has to do with processing speed. Right? Like CJ Allen, I bet, is just such a better processor of information and what's going on in front of you. And that's critically important at the linebacker position. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough at running back too, where you are, 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and you need to make a decision and go. And that's what's going to make you faster than everybody else.
Get the ball, pretty much.
Yep. And it's the same thing from linebacker.
I just looked up the CJ Allen thing. So he had a meniscus trim in the middle of the season and then kept playing.
Oh, okay.
So that's the knee issue.
I mean,
that's always really concerning. That's the Anthony Barr situation.
Yeah, well, it's the JJ McCarthy situation, right? Where it's like, oh, we could do a trim. Well, he had the full repair, but it's like we could do the trim, but maybe we should do the full repair, right? Maybe they should have done the full repair.
Yeah. So I guess people are probably rightfully a little concerned that he had the trim, he played on it, and now months later it's still bugging him and he couldn't test. Yeah. That's probably a concern.
Yeah, for sure. So injury notwithstanding, let's go through some favorites. I don't think I had you talk about Traden Stukes. I mean, you mentioned him in passing, but like in terms of favorite fits for the Vikings, it sounds like one from him and any other favorite fits that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, so he was a really interesting conversation about scheme fit because a lot of what he played was like the Mike Zimmer, Nick Saban-ish star position, where he's like the nickel corner basically. And Flores doesn't have nickels do the same thing. He did a lot of like wall number 2. And I kind of thought that was where he was at his worst, was that star position. I thought he did way better when he was lined up as a deep safety or as a box player or as, an overhang or something like that. So I was like, well, we would only ask him to do the stuff that he's best at. That was kind of how I felt about it. I think he was a good like downhill physical player. I loved how he triggered. I loved the footwork. I loved the transitions from backpedal into downhill or shuffle into downhill. And I thought he could hold up reasonably well in man coverage and stuff. I just didn't love him as like a guy, walling number 2 and being physical. I thought he just kind of missed his shot a bunch of times there and then let a guy behind him. But I get the concerns about that. And I know that there's like, he just doesn't have the athletic ceiling as somebody like Downs or Sieneman or McNeil Warren. So it's probably going to go after him. But I think if this is a guy that I'd be fine taking him at 49. I'm that high on him. And I think that makes me higher than consensus on him. if he's like there at 82, it's highway robbery to me. He's somebody that probably, like, I think consensus has him like in the 60s. So that would be like highway robbery to me, but I would reach on him. I'd be happy to do that. I'm high enough.
Sure. I think that sounds like a great solution. We could actually fix the secondary, which we've been begging for since, I guess, Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth failed, and do it again. Just flip it, right? Corner first round, second round safety.
Yeah, right.
Nobody will be upset about that. Nobody will be upset about that in the Viking sphere. No.
If anything, it highlights that you have a need.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a draft pick bust out, that is now a need. You have to do it again.
Yep. Did you watch any receivers at all, or basically everybody we've covered here today is the extent of kind of what you've done of draft prep, which is totally fine.
Not at all. I think I watched some Miami offense just by osmosis, watching some of these, and I don't even know who like Mekhi Lemon is.
He's USC. So
I'm doing great. Yeah. Was it Cardinal Tate's Ohio State?
Cardinal Tate's Ohio State. Yeah.
The receivers. Completely not my business. Whatever discourse is happening there, that's beyond me. That's someone else's job.
All good. Another shot just from me.
One. And I would be screwed.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm taking that risk.
Oh, totally fine. I mean, I don't think they're taking one in the first round, but I love a day 2 receiver, honestly, because I don't believe in Ty Felton.
But like, maybe we won't extend Addison and whatever. Maybe we want another. Like, there's a justification in hindsight if they do.
100%.
Because like every position's possibly a need. But I was like, they're not going to do this. I'm going to focus my attention elsewhere. I can't do the thing that like Forno does, or like the Emery Hunt, watch 600 players. I can't watch everybody. I got to pick a couple positions and hone in on them. That's the way I do this.
No, it took me until mid-April to watch the 3 guys the Vikings signed in free agency this year. So that's that's how much time I have had for draft prospects. But this was fantastic, Luke. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL. Or LockedOnVikings@gmail.com is probably how you could reach him the best. Locked On Vikings podcast.
Yeah, Locked On
every
Vikings
single
podcast
day
@gmail.com if you want to hit me, or you can of course join one of the various memberships, Everydayer Club, which is a Locked On thing, or my Patreon, which is my personal one.
Yeah. I'm Matt Freese. You can find me at friesfootball.bsky.social as long as Blue Sky still exists, if it even does today. I don't know. They've been having some rough times the last 2 days. I don't actually skeet like ever. I like look at stuff, but I never skeet unless I'm like tweeting out tapes of players in the articles I write. But where you really
often we're grilling. Yeah, it's a good life.
Where you can really check me out is writing for Wide Left. I try, and one of the things I like is I get to dive as deep as I want to into these things, so it kind of replaces the podcasting thing for me in a lot of aspects. But maybe I'll hop on here if I have some takes in the future, just because I'm keeping it as a space for myself to get it out if I want to. So
love it.
Thanks everybody for listening, and Skol Vikings.
Oh, baby. Another first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, another first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, another first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all cheer on behind, and we'll score the